Welcome to video 2. We had a lazy afternoon and evening, took the dogs for a walk. Apart from that and watching the television, we did nothing else. It was a peaceful night, and we were up early, usually at 6-7 o'clock, and take the dogs for a walk over in the park again. Had some breakfast, went up to the petrol station to get some milk, and we were ready for the off. There's a footbridge just behind where we moor, which is Margaret's favourite. She always has trouble getting through, but we got through no trouble. We passed the boatyard, Blue Water Marina, and then on to Wykewell Lift Bridge, which is the one you'll see coming up in the video. Wykewell Lift Bridge also had a stoppage on it before we left, but they managed to fix it. There was a weld at the top of the bridge mechanism which was failing, so they had to keep it in the lockdown position, but they managed to get a welder to do a temporary fix on it, but by the time we got there it was back in action. This is Godnow Swing Bridge, which also had a stoppage on it. They were allowing you through only on a certain times during the day. They were changing the motor on the swing bridge, so that held us up a bit. We had to sit for nearly an hour until until they had the sandwiches, and then the workmen actually manually pushed the bridge open and let us through. This is Varzan Swing Bridge before Varzan Sliding Railway Bridge, which is the one that had been closed since March the 23rd. It's manned by Network Rail, and they'd actually laid the guy off because of COVID. But he was there today, and he popped his head out and said hello to us, and then we went through, no problem at all. It's not far down to Keedby, just before the lock, which is where we moor up on the night on the right hand side. So probably about 1 o'clock, something like that, when we arrived. So again, another lazy day waiting for the tide tomorrow. Well, we arrived at Keedby moorings about 1 o'clock on the afternoon of the 15th, the Monday. It's just over 8 miles. There's 6 bridges, and it took us about 3.5 hours. And there's nothing more to do really, to sit about until I think it was about 10 o'clock on the Tuesday morning. So it was feet up time, have something to eat, a cup of tea and a drink in the evening. Well, this is Keedby Lock. I think we went out about 10 o'clock, something about 10, half past 10. What you've got to do is you go out on the flood tide and you wait till it actually dries out at the front of the lock. So you've got to wait for the flood to start coming back in. As soon as he's got enough water, he sets you off and away you go. We went out with another boat. He was only going as far as West Stockwith onto the Chesterfield Canal, but we were then pushing on. I like to get out first and get going. But once you go out, if it's a really fast tide, you really pick up fast and you trundle along. Past West Stockwith, you then go through Gainsborough and then on to Torksey, which is where, again, I said earlier, we stayed overnight. 2'6", mate.
Talking to me, can't hear you.
The tidal Trent is quite big and wide, but once you get on it, it's alright. You just got to make sure that you take your right way around the bends. On the flood tide it's okay, there's plenty of water. We're just passing under the M18 motorway. When you're coming back down, you usually ring the lock keeper from this point and he gets the lock ready for you, because you're coming fast and you've got to turn and actually get into the lock to get back into Keedby. But going this way, it's easy. You just go with the tide basically. On the left there was a large commercial boat. I think it was probably dredging, and you'll see in a bit he actually catches us up and we let him past, and he actually moored up in Gainsborough. You can see on the right hand side. I pulled over to the left and slowed down. I could have actually kept up with him or just kept in front of him, but usually better letting him get in front, because they do go quite fast, and away he goes. Shortly you'll see we'll come up to West Stockwith Lock, which I said earlier takes you up onto the Chesterfield Canal. It was quite busy there that day because we were going up on the flood and people were coming down, from Torksey probably, to come in on that tide. So there's a few boats milling around trying to get in, and you'll see as we come up, there was a boat coming right across the bow of that commercial boat, and I slowed down a bit to let the guy get across, and then they were tying up on the right, so we're ready to get into the lock. You can see the boat's tied up, waiting to go in the lock. And there's a lot of rife together. They've got to wait around because you only get two in the lock at any one time. This is just approaching the outskirts of Gainsborough, and there's a sharp right-hander here, and when it's flooding you go around there quite fast. You've got to make sure you keep off the wall and you keep not too far to the right, because there's a sandbank on the right. If you keep in the middle you're usually alright, but you can go around there pretty fast. This is coming through Gainsborough. On the left there's the moorings there. Some people stop there overnight. I've never fancied it myself. I usually like to get past and get from Torksey to Keadby or Keadby to Torksey, and then up in the front you'll see we go under the I've jumped ahead a bit now from Gainsborough. It's actually 4.25 hours to get you up to Torksey, so it is quite a long run, and the bit between Gainsborough and here is quite windy, and it seems to go on forever. We turn left into Torksey there, and you'll see shortly we'll swing in, and you'll see the pontoon moorings on the left. See the pontoon moorings on the left. What I like to do is when I come in, I turn round while I've got enough water, because it gets quite low when the tide goes out, and when that river's in flood, those pontoon moorings are nearly to the top of the stanchions, so you can see how much it can flood. Don't want to be on there when it's in flood. We're turning around now, and just as we turned round, you can see the sky's getting really dark. We had a really heavy thunderstorm. Just got in time, chucked everything in, going in, and had a cup of tea. We stayed there overnight, not a problem. Say 10 o'clock for us too. It's still the middle of the afternoon, so we've got to kill some time till the next morning. I think we're going out about 6 o'clock the next morning on the flood tide again. So that's it, tied up at Torksey Lock. It's about 28 miles to Torksey from Keadby. It's took us 5.5 hours, but about 3/4 of an hour or so is in the lock. So you're probably talking 4 3/4 hours, which is not bad going. Well, it was a pretty uneventful night. We can't take dogs for a walk. You can take them over the road bridge and actually down the side of the river. But we got up the next morning, and I say it was about 6 o'clock in the morning and it was foggy, which is all right. But sometimes we were getting that thick, you could just see the sides of the river. And I mean, I know the river, so I know where the bends are, so it wasn't too much of a problem. This is the toll bridge at Dunham, and then just beyond there there's a place, my favourite place, called Dunham Dubs, and it's a bend where I've grounded twice, because especially if you're coming up on the flood and you haven't got a lot of water, as you're going round the corner on the right, there's a sandbank. If you go too far to the left, there's a sandbank, so you've got to get it just right. I mean, it's not too bad when you ground. You've got to wait for the tide to come in to push you off again. this is going round Dunham Dubs in the fog. Spectacular. You can't see a lot because it's foggy, but I wanted to record it anyway. Again, as the first section, you don't get a lot of tidal push up above Torksey Lock. There's a bit, but just sort of cancels out the flow of the water, and there was quite a lot of water coming down, so the engine was doing its job. The other thing we found was there was hundreds and hundreds of fishermen who were all out. I spoke to some of them and said, well, we've nothing else to do, we're all furloughed. So you'll see as we go along, see on the right there, they're all up on the banks of the Trent. Some good fishing this side. I've jumped ahead a bit here. Like I say, I've crunched all this down as 3.5 hours worth. This is just approaching Cromwell Lock, which is where we're going to stay for the night. And you can see there's a boat coming out on the left. He'll be going down on the ebb. The tide turned, you start to notice it probably 3/4 of an hour out. So you're having to crank the engine up a bit. So he's going to go down on that, probably down to Torksey, and stay the night on Torksey. But when we get through this big lock, we're actually on the non-tidal section. Even though there was a lot of fresh, so we were still pushing the river as we were going. There's still big locks all the way up the Trent. There's a lock keeper's control up on the top. I'll shout down to you. With all the locks as we've gone along, the tidal ones, this one and Keedby, were manned, but you had to let them know you were coming, because they'd only come on when you've actually booked. So we'd booked ahead, and he was waiting for us. But he was doing He was doing Torksey Lock as well, to take you up towards Lincoln. So he then had to drive from there to come to here to let us through, because all the volunteers were laid off. And this is where we're staying for the night. A lot of the bigger boats, the big cruisers, moor up on the right there. But if I do that, I can't get the dogs off because I've got to climb up the ladders. So just past there is some pontoon moorings. You can get 4 boats on at a push. But as you can see, there was nobody there this time, which was great. So we could take our pick. So we pulled up on the right. They actually have electric and water on them. So you put a card in for your electric. So we actually did plug into the electric. So we got moored up there. Again, it was only about lunchtime, so we had plenty of time, quite relaxing. And you can take the dogs up on the side, and there's a pathway all the way along, so we can take the dogs for a walk as well. Well, we're all moored up now. We've got everything plugged in, we've got tied in. I put extra ropes on because the river's running quite fast. I don't want to disappear down the weir. And that's the end of the second video.